Ladies and gentlemen, we have some urgent and important information that we need to discuss. And first, before we get started, I need to ask you a question. Please comment down below and let me know your thoughts. How do you feel about the government having complete control over every dollar you make, every dollar you save, and every dollar you spend, or for that matter, every digital dollar, as we are moving towards a CBDC future that has the likelihood and possibility of introducing some devastating implications against you and I, the American people, all the possibilities that our money could hold for us, but more importantly, what it could hold for these lawmakers, politicians, the IRS, greedy folks in power looking to take further control over you and I, and make it so that we are slaves to the system. Folks, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. We have some important information to discuss here. Please bear with me. I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible. And if I move too quickly, feel free to rewind the video, replay the video, take notes. I encourage you to ask questions, express your concerns, share your experiences, and what you think is going to happen next, as well as what we can do to prepare for what is happening next, if we even have the possibility of trying to prevent this from happening next. Ladies and gentlemen, this is really, really disturbing to hear, but it is nonetheless why you return to this channel on a daily basis, and it's for the truth. So let's get right into it. So it says here that there's a proposed South Dakota amendment to the UCC, which would prohibit cryptocurrencies, but not CBDC. So obviously there's a strong push by those folks in power, the government, to take control over the monetary system, as they obviously can see here that they have slowly been losing that control because the people have decided to take over. The people have decided what's best in our interests. And it says here that the bill authorized by a Republican state legislator would prevent the use of cryptocurrency as a medium of exchange. How can you as a government prevent me from utilizing anything as a medium of exchange? For instance, if somebody asked to borrow my car and in exchange they were going to cook me a meal, the government's going to sit here and tell me that I can't exchange because I can't use this as a medium of exchange, because it's not their CBDC that they have control over, and most importantly, they can tax you on. That's what they want, folks. They want the ability to tax us as much as humanly possible, almost seemingly inhumanly possible. And I'm going to get to that in just a moment, because it is rather alarming. Legislation has been introduced in the American state of South Dakota to amend the Uniform Commercial Code, the UCC, to limit the definition of money to exclude cryptocurrencies, central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, which would still be considered money under the proposed new definition. So they're rewriting the books, they're rewriting history, they're rewriting definitions, and they're looking to include CBDC, this new central bank digital currency, as being an acceptable form of money. And it says that the term does not include an electronic record that is a medium of exchange recorded and transferable in a system that existed and operated for the medium of exchange before the medium of exchange was authorized or adopted by the government. Long story short, if they don't like it, they don't want it. And what they don't like about cryptocurrency is that they don't control it, and it's too complicated for them to be able to tax. And they're going to provide a reason here as to why they don't want to be involved with cryptocurrency, although they do in a sense, as well as the banks, because the banks are on notice here as well, which is shocking. But it says that notably CBDC falls within the proposed definition of money, unlike cryptocurrency. How convenient. And the South Dakota bill contrasts with the CBDC Anti-Surveillance State Act that recently was introduced into the U.S. House of Representatives by Minnesota Republican Tom Emmer, who was considered a proponent of cryptocurrency. Now, you guys may recall the video that I shared with you, specifically stating the details of this proposal, as the Fed, the central banks, politicians, lawmakers, the President of the United States are looking to use CBDC, the central bank digital currency, these digital dollars, to, in my opinion, illegally and unjustifiably spy, track, record, and dictate how you and I, American citizens, can live our lives. Now, it says here that the UCC introduced the concept of controllable electronic records. The United States does not have a CBDC, although a digital dollar is the subject of research within the U.S. government and other groups, such as the Digital Dollar Project. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that queued up for you guys so I can make you a video on the Digital Dollar Project. Stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, turn on alerts, turn on notifications so that you guys are aware. And it says that changes to the UCC create giant choice of law problems. And this is how they try to justify it, okay? This is how they try to justify how cryptocurrency is not acceptable, how it's not defined the term as money, even though cryptocurrency is literally the same operational setup as a central bank digital currency, utilizing a blockchain technology to conduct these financial transactions instantaneously around the world. And it says that changes, this is how they try to justify it. Changes to the UCC create giant choice of law problems. And if any company or any person with crypto ends up in a bankruptcy court wouldn't know what law to apply. Now, this is a hypocritical statement because I can tell you right now that the banks know which law to apply. Case in point, Sam Bankman-Fried, SBF, or the FTX scandal. They know what laws to apply. You can just turn the TV on and see it. I mean, now Fox News reports that the scary Fed idea to turn your dollars into a digital power grab is a real concern, folks. I want you guys to pay attention to this. The scary Fed idea to turn your dollars into a digital power grab. And it says here that the digital dollars could let the Fed monitor or even control how you spend your money. It's not a could, it would. And I'm gonna tell you guys right now, I don't vote for this, okay? I don't condone this. I don't agree with this. I think this is total bullcrap. And I'm gonna explain to you why here in just a moment. Imagine if a bureaucrat had the power to limit your savings or place a shelf life on the money that you earn. I'm going to show you a video here. Check this out.
Why is that guy sitting at a coffee place but not drinking any coffee?
This is a video that I came across the other day on YouTube of another content creator in another country, maybe Prague. I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember exactly. But he was exposing these scammers on the streets that would post up outside of currency exchange locations when they're closed to trick tourists into allowing them to convert their money into the usable currency for the city that they're in or the country that they're in, only to give them the incorrect money in exchange. But what happens is that the money that they give them in exchange is expired. Expired rubles. I believe it's expired rubles. This is where we're headed, folks, because it says that the bureaucrats would have the power to limit your savings or place a shelf life on your money that you earn. Therefore, your money would have an expiration date, okay? And this is very important as we get into this, especially if you are watching this video because of the thumbnail, and you're going to see just why in just a second, and what was stated on the thumbnail. And it says that the United Kingdom and the Bank of England are floating these ideas as well at this very point in time. Money with an expiration, a digital currency with an expiration. And it says that Americans should be concerned because the Fed looks to be following in its parents' footsteps, folks. United Kingdom, Bank of England. I'm not making this up. It's right here so you can see it. And it says that the digital dollar being advocated by members of the Treasury and Federal Reserve is an example of central bank digital currency, Cbdc. And at first blush, our currency already appears to be digitized. Many people no longer carry physical cash and instead use digital payment methods like a chipped credit card or their smartphones. Likewise, direct deposit has become the standard method of payment for labor. Dollars are transferred in a stream of ones and zeros, not paper bills or metal coins. And this is where we are, folks. We've been here for quite a while. However, they want to implement further restrictions in the ability to provide, give, and retract and take back and take away, while having the ability to tax further and further and further in this Ponzi scheme that we call the Federal Reserve. But those dollars are inherently fungible, and it's irrelevant if you accept or pay with any particular dollar because each one functions exactly the same as the other, and CBDCs are different. They are programmable, traceable, trackable, and taxable. That should be alarming on its own. Let me say that again. CBDCs are programmable, traceable, trackable, and taxable. Taxable. This is the new one because this one hasn't been thrown around a lot in the original discussions of CBDC as far as security and international transactions and inclusion. You remember that phrase inclusion that they wanted to get people on board with? Folks, I'm going to tell you guys right now, we are in trouble because there are going to be certain political agendas that are going to push for this to happen, and they're going to utilize key terminology and phrases and wording to get historically a certain group of voters on board for these lies of inclusion, greater access to the ability to build wealth, only to then, after get their votes, flip the script and then hit you with that tax, okay? See, we've seen it before. We're in this situation right now, folks. And it's happened more than once. I mean, just think about this, everything that's been, I'm not going to get into it. CBDCs are entirely under bureaucratic control because every digital dollar has a unique fingerprint. How do you like that? Literally all transactions can be surveilled, recorded, or even reversed by a bureaucrat push of a button. How would you like that, folks? Have you not seen my recent videos about how the banks are taking control and literally wiping out people with no remorse, no reasoning, and no solution? You want to put this power in the Fed's hand, in the government's hand, in politicians' hands? What? You're not going to vote for me? I'm taking the money back. Not only can the government tell how much money you're spending or saving, but what you're spending those dollars on and where you're parking your savings. Because there will be no more choice. Your only bank will be that of the central bank. Now, obviously, this is not an official statement from Janet Yellen. However, I can see this being the thought process behind what they're trying to introduce and what they're trying to push onto us, and having the ability to place an expiration date on your money and or tax your money in savings after it has already been taxed. You got to think, the Fed and the central banks, they utilize these tools and these strategies, these techniques to manipulate the economy with interest rates to provoke spending. But what other way could they provoke spending? I'm gonna give you a hint. It's called an expiration date. CBDCs can be earmarked for certain purchases and forbidden from others. The government can easily dictate which dollars of your income go to buying food and what kind of food. For instance, and that's particularly alarming in an era when the elites lecture about climate change and push for people to eat less beef and more bugs. So just think about it like this, folks. Think about it. The welfare programs like EBT, SNAP, food stamps, WIC, they are designed to provide government assistance for those in need to purchase specific foods, of which we've seen that certain states are trying to restrict what foods could be purchased with these government handouts. What do you think would happen when the government introduces the CBDC, the central bank digital currency. This is a new form of the digital dollar, and they're setting restrictions on what people can and cannot buy. You're literally going to be going to work to earn money, to be paid in a central bank digital currency, a CBDC, that the government can then control as if it were a government handout or welfare. How do you like that? Imagine the government creating dollars that can only be used for food, thereby dictating to you how much of your income can be spent that way. And that is basically what happens with food stamps, which can only be used at certain establishments and only on certain items. And folks, if there's no better time than ever for me to bring up the fact of diversity, security, and cash flow now, it is important, because in a situation like this to me is like, okay, they're going to tell you what food you can and cannot buy, but it's also telling me what your money can be used for in a term of investment. And therefore, I want to make sure I have as many cash flow producing assets as possible now, before they try to limit how I can conduct business and make and invest and engage in investing. Likewise, imagine the government dictating which dollars you can use to heat or cool your home. Sound plausible or implausible? No, it doesn't, because we already know that certain states are already experiencing hardship with managing their energy consumption and cost as it is. So why wouldn't the government introduce a way to limit how much you can put towards energy consumption as we push this green agenda? And it says that there are already multiple instances of government taking control of families' digital thermostats without their knowledge, let alone their permission to dictate what temperature their home would be set at. And with a CBDC, the central bank can also effectively force spending and prevent saving by imposing maximum saving limits and preventing and hoarding by confiscating unspent digital dollars. People with no savings are more reliant on government in emergencies. And if you're unable to save for a rainy day, you're at the whim of a bureaucrat holding the purse strings of your life. Now, is that where you really want to find yourself? Yeah, sorry about the scenery change here. My camera was getting a little too hot in the car. So, not just my camera, folks, me too. I'm getting a little hot and heated by reading this information, this craziness, this nonsense of what they are basically trying to enforce and impose on us against our will, because they are creating these new forms of the means of financial monetary exchange, the medium of exchange. We don't have a say in this, okay? We don't have a vote. We don't have a dog in the fight, except for those who are pushing against this, like Minnesota Republican Tom Emmer, who's pushing for this. So we need to support and we need to back him on this fight, because if we lose this fight, man, I don't even want to think about what that means, folks. But I do want to share this with you, where it says that the same level of surveillance extends to every transaction, no matter how small, like paying a babysitter or borrowing money from a friend. And a trace transaction can also be taxed. And if you think that we're getting taxed heavily now, just wait and see if they get their way. It will be unbelievable. I got a clip here that I want you guys to watch. Bear with me. It's going to provide further information on what they are working on behind the scenes and just how badly it will impact and affect us all. Here, check this out.
Federal lawmakers are trying to tame cryptocurrency. The House is impaneling a brand new subcommittee to study and potentially regulate digital currencies. Senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram has that report.
Virtual currency is virtually unregulated compared to conventional assets. The collapse of FTX and arrest of Sam Bankman-Fried compelled Congress to act.
The crypto industry will try to say that Sam Bankman-Fried was just one big snake in a crypto Garden of Eden. No, crypto is a garden of snakes. He's just the first one we caught.
There's no federal deposit insurance with cryptocurrency. The Securities and Exchange Commission is increasing scrutiny after the FTX bankruptcy.
No financial industry should get to write its own playbook. You either comply with the law or you face tough consequences for violating it. Crypto is no different.
Lawmakers worry the U.S. lags with guardrails.
Do you want China writing those rules? Do you want North Korea writing those rules? U.S. innovation belongs at the front of the bus, and we should be in charge of what's happening here.
It's a buyer beware market.
French Hill of Arkansas leads the new House panel on cryptocurrencies.
People have lost hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, over the past few years in this space. All the more reason for us to have a common sense regulatory framework for that innovation.
Industry advocates say there's a reason there's so much skepticism.
Having a clear and concise market regulator will really go a long ways towards protecting consumers so that we don't find ourselves in the situation that we did towards the end of 2022.
Still, it takes a lot to convince lawmakers of prospective crypto merits.
Cryptocurrency literally means hidden money. And if we're able to shine in the bright light of know your customer and anti-money laundering statutes, crypto will disappear. It'll become just a pet rock.
I honestly can't even believe what I just watched, nor what I just heard.
No financial industry should get to write its own playbook.
They're literally talking out of both sides of their mouth, stating that cryptocurrency cannot exist, cannot be allowed to be utilized by the people writing their own playbook. Meanwhile, these people are writing their own playbook. They try to leverage China, North Korea, whatever, but it still doesn't change the fact and justify what our government is trying to do to us and our money and our ability and our freedom. To limit people the ability to use the money that they've earned the way that they want to use it, to limit people's ability to purchase foods that they want to purchase, to limit people's ability to heat and cool their homes. I don't know any other way to describe it besides an attack on our freedom. The IRS is seeking to implement a reporting program to tax the tips of bartenders and waitresses. And this follows a warning to report any transfers via apps up to $600 or more, which we all know that the IRS imposed this new rule, this 1099 rule that got a lot of attention on YouTube. A lot of other creators creating content around this that they've postponed for 1 year. But basically any transaction over $600 through these apps like PayPal and Venmo and Cash App are going to be taxed. As if I were to let my daughter borrow 10 bucks from time to time, and over the course of the year, it adds up to over $600. I then have to have her file taxes for receiving money from me that I had already paid taxes on to earn. Does that make any sense? So much for going after the billionaires. Oh, wait. That's all of them. That's why they're not going after the billionaires. Business Insider reported, using data from Forbes, the world's billionaires 2018 ranking, which 2018, so if we fast forward this to 2023, the ranking is probably going to be slightly different, meaning more of Congress, more politicians, more lawmakers are included on this list. And it ranks the planet's top 400 billionaires, with the wealth of Congress ranking the net worth of the 115th Congress. And Business Insider put together a list of the 15 wealthiest U.S. politicians now in office. I'll just let this scroll in the background so you guys can see where their mind is at, where their priorities are, where their focus is, okay? And they want to shift their focus elsewhere so that we don't have to, and not even talk about, issues like these, okay? Cbdc also allows for an unparalleled level of collusion between big businesses and big government. And if you guys recall, there are several big businesses that are literally funded and backed by big government. Businesses that receive bailouts, businesses that are too big to fail. that have heavy investments through various channels directly tied to the government. Businesses can be given preferred status where certain digital dollars may only be spent with those establishments. And this means that the government can control who wins and who loses, and capitalism will ultimately be dead on the spot. Businesses will be suffocated and choked out while others will be allowed to thrive. Why? Because the dollars with these digital fingerprints are only going to be able to be spent and used in these particular businesses that more than likely will benefit those in power. Remember, Nancy Pelosi's husband having just, the best of luck when it comes to trading and investing and options trading, calls and puts. You don't think that they would direct the funds to certain businesses that would allow them to reap the benefits on the back end? Conversely, some dollars may not work at certain businesses like a gas station. And if the government wants to discourage a product or service like petroleum-based fuels as we push towards this green renewable energy goals which bureaucrats try to achieve through manipulation of the tax code, like subsidizing solar panels and taxing oil, could easily be forced on the public with a CBDC. The government can easily dictate which dollars of your income go to buying food and what kind of food, for instance, and that's particularly alarming in an era when the elites lecture about climate change and push for people to eat less beef and more bugs. Hope you like bugs. Equally worrisome would be the Fed's ability to inflate and deflate the currency. The CBDCs make this process effortless by removing private banks from the Fed's methods of creating money, guaranteeing future inflation and runaway government spending. And this is what I was telling you about earlier in the video about how the private banks should be worried and concerned because the Fed is also working against them. And they play this little cat and mouse game of what suits them best when in their favor. But at the end of the day, the banks, they have their own concerns when it comes to account holders and liquidity crises and defaults and inability to make their debt payments. But the banks are also worried and concerned about the Fed cutting out their legs from underneath them. At least those banks that aren't in the circle. Because there are some banks that are pretty much government owned, for lack of better words. This is another scary proposition, folks. Since bureaucrats could turn down people for loans based upon things other than their likelihood of repaying, are you not woke enough? Then no mortgage for you. A CBDC makes such dystopia scenarios possible and perhaps inevitable. Go watch my previous video from just a few days ago where I explained to you how this new ESG social credit score is going to be the demise of our society in the very near future. So what does CBDC represent? And according to Fox News, in a word, control. Perhaps that is why Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and President Joe Biden are so supportive of the idea. A digital dollar would give them and future administrations a level of power so unprecedented that Orwell could not have envisioned it himself. After the economic damage the federal intervention has caused, the last thing the government deserves is more power. Ladies and gentlemen, please comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on this. Let me know what you think about what's happening, what's going on, and most importantly, for those who are asking the questions of, well, what do we do now? How do we plan? How do we prepare for this? I'm going to stick with my 3 pillars, folks: diversity, security, and cash flow. Hopefully, we have some support here and we can nip this in the bud before it becomes so far gone and so detrimental that we are all ultimately economically and financially doomed, and then, essentially becoming slaves to our government, working for them only in this socialist Marxist society of no ability to have any real freedom whatsoever when it comes to your choice of bank, choice of investment, choice of food, choice of business, choice of dollar, choice of exchange, choice of anything. And with that diversity, security, and cash flow, again, assets are key. Folks, Hard Assets Alliance, it's a strong consideration of mine. on a regular basis to make sure I'm staying diversified. There's links in the description for anybody, 100% free links. But diversity, security, and cash flow, I want to be buying up assets because assets will maintain intrinsic value despite what the currency is. So, the Fed can't push a button and take away my rental properties. The Fed can't push a button and take away my businesses that I own. They can try to limit them, but depending on how my business is set up and structured, I still have a strong, viable business model, as well as diverse multiple income streams through the cash flow to maintain my level of security. Okay. And then the security is going to come into greater play with these CBDCs, with cryptocurrencies, with other forms being introduced, BNB nodes, folks. The security is going to be the biggest factor, and not just against the criminals in the world by the traditional sense, traditional form that we recognize them as, but the criminals wearing the suits and the ties, standing behind podiums and being and working, only about 120 days out of the year, and the rest are on vacation, up in their offices in Washington, and flying around the world in their private jets, just burning up fuel, destroying the ozone, and making their lasting impact on the climate. We have to protect and secure ourselves from those criminals as well. Folks, I hope this information is helpful, useful to you. It's not intended to scare you. I'm not trying to incite fear. I'm trying to share knowledge, education, wisdom, insight, as well as opportunities. Free links in the descriptions. Free links for getting free stocks from Moomoo. Click the link down in the description. We need to make sure that we're working and diligently working towards a plan of diversity, security, and cash flow, while staying educated and up to date and abreast to the latest information from what's happening in Washington, D.C., what's happening in Congress, what's happening with these new bill proposals, and what's going to ultimately happen to our money that we do or do not have, or may not have in the future. And if you're of the collective group that is saying, I don't have money now, then we need to work on solidifying and producing goals and turning them into plans of strategy that can be executed to change that, okay? Because once this rolls out, it's just going to add further complexity and hardship to those who haven't been doing what they need to do to put themselves in a position of financial security. And on that bombshell, you guys take care, be safe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.